Hello everyone, my name is Kiva and welcome back to my YouTube channel. 2022 is just around the corner and that means those 2022 design trends are knocking on your front door. So what are you gonna do? Well, in today's video, I'm talking about 5 interior design trends for 2022 that I'm not too excited about. I hate to be a negative Nancy, but I just wanna make sure that you're keeping your house practical and you're saving your hard-earned money. So let's get into today's video. So I have to preface the video by saying I'm not a huge fan of design trends because it's expensive, because we're changing our homes every single year and I'm like, who is paying for this? No one has the money to buy a new sofa, new lighting, new this, new that every single year. It's wasteful, it's expensive, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. But that is not specific to 2022 trends, that is specific to all trends. So let's make the 2022 design trend to stop following trends, but that's probably wishful thinking. So let's just get started. So the very first 2022 design trend I want to talk about is vintage and thrifting. So both of those things are really in, and I only have a qualm with one of them. So let's talk about it. So the earth is in dire need, and we all know this. We need to recycle, we need to be more sustainable, and a really amazing way to do that is to reuse furniture. Instead of buying that fast furniture, instead of going to IKEA and Target and things that I am guilty of doing, instead of doing that fast furniture, what we can actually do instead is reuse things that other people have had, especially since we know with design trends, we kind of recycle things that were once popular. So I don't actually have a qualm with that. The thing that I have a problem with is that we are finding these things in our local thrift stores. And if you've been here for a while, you know a little bit about my story, but I do want to share it with you today. So I fortunately had the ability to be taken care of by my grandmother when no one else could take care of me. And I'm so very grateful for that. And I had an amazing life growing up, but we really didn't have that much money, right? And the only place we ever really shopped was Goodwill. We did take the occasional trip to JCPenney, but otherwise Goodwill was it. That's where I got all of my toys, all of my clothes, all of our furniture. So with that being said, the sofas were, $50, right? The coffee tables were $5. Everything was really, really affordable. And I felt that that was great, right? Because we couldn't afford anything else. We were able to shop within our means and get those goods. But because vintage is popular, because thrifting is in, those prices are skyrocketing. And it's not even about the prices skyrocketing. It's people who can afford to buy those things brand new, the people who can afford to go to the antique shop and pay that premium, taking away from the people who need it, right? And I know that the Goodwill is for everyone. I know that consignment shops are for everyone, but we need to think about who actually needs those affordable prices, right? And I'm all about the Lux look for less, but I'm not about the Lux look for less when we're taking away from people in need. And that's kind of how I feel about this design trend. So I'm not really on board for it. So if you want to be more sustainable, please do that. But instead of going to the Goodwill when you can afford to go to, those consignment shops, those antique shops, those things where you have the premium but you're still getting that sustainable furniture, please do that instead. Don't take away from the people who need these resources, especially now given the pandemic when so many people are struggling financially. Some person really needs that dresser that you kind of just want to flip. You want to do that DIY project for. Someone needs that. Someone can't afford to flip it. Someone can't afford those painted materials to make a profit. Someone just needs a dresser, right? So instead of catering to our hobbies and like these trends, let's just be a little bit more cognizant of other people when we're doing our shopping. I know we want to be done with fast furniture. I'm 100% on board, but again, just go to the vintage shop, the antique shops, the place where you're paying a premium for those goods instead of taking away from people who really need it. That's my only qualm with that design trend, but it's something that I really feel like I needed to say. The next 2022 design trend I want to talk about is this idea that open floor plans are out. So that's what I've been reading online on Insider, House Beautiful. When I'm reading my interior design magazines, people are saying that open floor plans are out. And I think that's fine. We have lived throughout the pandemic and we have so many multi-purpose spaces. And some of us, we want distinct spaces, right? We don't want to be on top of our spouse, on top of our children. We just want our personal space. So I am all for that. But my qualm with this is that you're saying that open floor plans are out or closed floor plans are in. So what exactly do you want the average person to do about it? Do I need to put up a wall? Is that what you're asking me to do? Are you asking me to move? Are you asking me to build my own house with this design trend in mind? I think it's sort of an impractical design trend. And that is the overall problem with design trends. When people can't attain them, whether that be practically, functionally, temporally, fiscally, it makes people feel bad, right? So if you're saying open concepts are out, someone starts to feel kind of self-conscious about their house. Oh, like my house is not in, I'm putting in all this effort, it doesn't look good enough. I don't think that that's fair. I don't think it's fair to say something structurally is out. I think if open floor plans are not as visually appealing anymore, there's so many things we can do to better segment our spaces. So let's talk about that, right? Let's put a positive spin on things. So if open floor plans are out, what we can do is we can divide our rooms. You can divide your rooms using lighting, using plants. You can even add room dividers if you want to, but I firmly believe that dividing a room has to do with how you position your furniture. Now, that means if you have your living room and your dining room in close proximity, have the back of the sofa kind of divide you from that living space so that you do get that division, so that the rooms do feel distinct. Now, if you need your rooms to feel distinct for, getting away from your kids or getting away from your spouse or getting away from your dog, we have to actually just think about how we can turn other rooms like our bedrooms or our game rooms into multi-purpose spaces that kind of meet our needs. If the kids are always in the living room and they're never in the basement, and your basement is kind of like your man cave or your woman cave, let's figure out how to turn that man cave / woman cave into your office, right? So that you can have both of your needs met without having to put up a new wall or without having to move. That's a little bit more practical. I think what we need to do is be a little bit more open-minded, a little bit more flexible. I think that's how we can actually make our more open concepts feel closed without having to go buy an entirely new home. The next 2022 design trend that is predicted to be popular is cottage core. Now, let me just tell you what cottage core is. So think English countryside. You have your little cottage. You know what comes to mind for me? Peter Rabbit. Peter Rabbit. You have the nice cottage, you have the trellis, you have the ivy going up, which is bad for your house. Please don't do that. You have the ivy going up, you have the flowers, you have the garden. I think everything about it sounds really good. I really like the idea of an English countryside inspired home. However, a lot of us do not live in the English countryside, and I think that making a house that looks like a cottage in the middle of Pittsburgh just kind of doesn't make any sense, because this is Steel City, baby, right? We're all about the industrial. We're all about like the brick and the steel and the grungy. Putting a cottage in the middle of this city, it just kind of looks silly. Let's give a better example. So in a lot of cities, we see these modern homes popping up, right? And you have your basic quintessential American home, right? You have your colonial home, you have your standard brick home, and then you just have this house made of glass. And you're like, this house looks nice, but it looks stupid in the middle of everything. And I kind of feel the way about the cottage core. I think a cottage core exterior would look really nice in a suburb, in a rural space, in the English countryside, but I don't think it makes sense for everyday spaces. But let's kind of delve deeper into the cottage core. So again, I like the idea behind it. A really huge premise of the cottage core is bringing some of the earthiness, some of outside indoors, and I love that, right? We need more greenery, we need more plants, we need more earth tones. We need to be a little bit more connected with the earth. Again, we're talking about sustainability, and plants hold so much power when it comes to decor. They add shapes, they add color, they add texture, they add everything that a $500 throw pillow can add, but they clean your air. They do so many amazing things for you. So I love that about the cottage core. Now, something I don't like about the cottage core is the fact that we have all these floral prints, right? We have the doilies, we have the embroidery. Those things, they look nice, but they look kind of grandma-esque. But that's not the problem. I love my grandma. Grandmas are great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the resurgence of the old, which again is okay, but I think it lends itself more to the feminine, right? I don't really believe in the gender roles. You can believe what you believe. I don't really believe in that, but it is stereotypically a little bit more feminine, right? And I think that spaces should be a little bit more gender neutral for all the people that live in the space. Now, if your space is composed of all really feminine people, I think think that that's fine, but most of our spaces are not, right? So I think that we should have something that speaks to that and it doesn't pigeonhole us as much. Last but not least, I feel like the cottage core, there's so much texture, there's so much color from the wallpaper, the doilies, the layered rugs. I think it can be a little bit overbearing. And since we're going on 3 years of the pandemic, we're spending a lot more time inside, and I think it's just not having the space so cluttered is a little bit more homey feeling. I think it's a little bit more practical, but at the same time, cottage core, it does introduce those blues, those greens, those pinks, some warmer colors into the space that do feel a little bit more inviting, which I love as well. So I don't think I hate cottage core. I think I'm not as excited about it, but I think there's a way to do it really tactfully and really sophisticated and in an evergreen way versus a way that isn't, you know, something that you can live with long term. But I think it's a fun trend. I don't think it's one that I'm going to participate in. And the last thing I want to say about cottage core is it requires a lot of things that we don't already have, right? Because it's a total switch from most of our homes that are, even whether you're farmhouse, you're contemporary industrial, we don't have a lot of the wallpaper, a lot of the pillow covers, the blankets, the furniture. They're not things that we already have. So I feel like pursuing cottage core is going to be a bit expensive. But again, if you live in those rural spaces, if you live in the spaces where having that cottage core exterior makes sense, I love that. I actually really love the way that it looks, especially the exterior. It's homey, it's inviting. I like the idea of homesteading. That's phenomenal. A slower life is a life that I feel like we all need. That's something that I'm aspiring to. So I love that about the cottage core. I don't love how expensive it's going to be to actually establish that in your home. I think it's a little bit too over cluttered and kind of pigeonholy when it comes to the design style itself. So I'm not really on board, but that's what I kind of have to say about cottage core in 2022. Now, we just talked about cottage core, so we have to, of course, talk about this. In 2022, maximalism is going to be in. And I think it makes sense, right? I think it makes sense, and it also doesn't make sense. So let's just talk about it. So maximalism is having a bunch of stuff, and for the past few years, minimalism has been in. And minimalism has been in for a lot of reasons. It looks sleek, you kind of see it in those luxury homes, so that's something we aspire to. And number two, we've been stuck in our homes, and having all of these things around us makes us feel claustrophobic, right? So we've been purging things and getting rid of them and getting rid of them. But I think that's what we wanted kind of at the beginning of the pandemic. We wanted everything clean and clutter-free, but now we're starting to enjoy home. We like it, right? We kind of want it to be our sanctuary. So we're trying to bring more things in. We want to have a design style. We want it to represent us. But I think maximalism is a little bit too much because we go back to that feeling of claustrophobia, things being a little overbearing. I think that, you know, collecting things from your travels and collecting things from your life and having tons of texture, I think that's a beautiful thing. But I think with maximalism, it can be overbearing. Again, I actually grew up in a maximalist household, and it's great. You know, I love my grandmother's house. It's colorful. That we actually, from the Goodwill, we got the pots and stuff to kind of make our own mosaics. You can see that in these pictures here, and it's great. But it's so maximalist that I feel like there's no place for me to sit down. There's no space for me to relax. It looks more like an art installation than a place where you can actually live. And I think that's what happens with maximalism all the time. And that's why I'm kind of a little bit wary of this design trend. So I think if we can do maximalism in a way that we keep things kind of up on the walls maybe, and not taking up those floor space, and then kind of picking colors to kind of, you know, really infuse throughout our space instead of going, you know, running the gamut and choosing the entire rainbow like a little taste, like a Skittles commercial. If we can kind of pick a few, I think that could be more successful maximalism. Now, I think it's fine that minimalism is over. It's not over in my house, but that's fine. I think what we can do, if we can find a middle ground between the minimalism and the maximalism, I think that's going to have some longevity. We will have the things that make us feel at home, that make us feel special, that really speak to our life and our life experiences, but we also will feel like we can still live in the space. I think also what we can do is we can have minimalism in like our sanctuary spaces. So in our bedrooms, in our offices, in the spaces that really need to be clutter-free, that really need to be super refined so that they can be conducive to like good thinking and restfulness, and having maximalism in the places like our living rooms, our game rooms, our kitchens, where we don't actually have to have things be as you know, toned down. I think that will be a really good way to kind of navigate this 2022 design trend. The fifth and last 2022 design trend I want to talk about in today's video is the organic shape. So organic shapes are in 2022, and I'm not angry about it, right? I love organic shapes. I love the curvature. I think our spaces have been so devoid of curvature, even my own space, right? So many rectangles, so many squares, nothing that feels kind of natural, nothing that kind of creates the visual interest. That should be my tagline. Kiva loves visual interest, right? I say that all the time. Nothing that was really creating visual interest, and nothing that kind of reminds us of the shapes in nature. And again, nature is in people. Nature is going to be in for the next 100 years because we really need to get in touch with nature, appreciate nature, and become more sustainable. But I digress. But the organic shapes are in, right? And I love the idea of it, but I think the organic shapes being in is not very practical, right? So let's talk about those curved sofas. And the person who put this best is actually Avant-Garde Home Boston. My friend Julie over on TikTok and Instagram, she's fantastic. And she does a really phenomenal reel on the curved sofa. And while curved sofas look beautiful, right? They're really aesthetically pleasing. They're very uncomfortable to sit on. They're very uncomfortable to lay on because you have this curvature and you're kind of competing with the curve of the sofa and wanting to lay down on your sofa and take a good nap, right? And I think your sofas should be conducive to that. Babe, Wiener, and I, we have been on one of our sofas for the past 2 days just binging television, and it's been fantastic. Our sofa is big enough, we can both fit on it, the dog can fit on it, we can eat on it, we can do everything on it, right? And I love that, and that's because we have a really basic rectangular sofa. Now, if we have a curved sofa, I could sit on it and the dog could sit on it, and that would kind of be it. And my back would kind of be tweaked a little bit. It just wouldn't really be a vibe because it's not very practical for sitting. I think for your sitting rooms, for your lounges, the places that are more so decorative and places that you really don't sit and hunker down in, I think that's fine. But all of us, we're sitting back, we're watching TV, we're kind of enjoying the holidays. You want something comfortable, so I kind of feel like the curved furniture isn't practical. You are not going to take your Zoom calls from that curved sofa. You need something with that back support. You need something that is nice and rigid, and you just don't really get that with the curved furniture. Not only do we have the problem with curved furniture, but we also have that with curved vessels. So again, I love aesthetically the curved vessel, right? They have really nice shapes. They're just fun to look at. They look good. They always feel good because they're made out of really great materials, but you can't hide anything in them. And I really believe that you should be able to hide stuff in your other stuff, right? Because we all have clutter, we all have things. Even unless you are a really devout minimalist, you have stuff. You have dog toys, you have kids toys, you have papers, you have mail, you have this, you have that. We're people and we have things. And I need places to shove my things. And as I've said in prior videos, I like to put my speakers in vases. I put my mail and other types of things. For my decorative trays, that's where I put my mail, I put my keys, I put things like that. When things are curved, they can't fit as many things, right? If I have that really nice organic curved vase, I cannot shove my Alexa in it. Maybe I can put my Alexa behind it, but then it's taking up a lot of counter space. It is not like a twofer sort of situation. And I'm all about having my furniture, my decorative accents having two purposes, a practical one and an aesthetic one. And with these curved organic shapes, we mostly just get the aesthetic purpose. And that's just not good enough for me now. I'm spending all this money on these vases. I want them to do everything that I kind of need them to do. And it's not the vases, it's the trays, it's the decorative objects. I just want them to be a little bit more versatile. So that is kind of my hesitation with the design trend, but it's one that I'm still going to buy into because I love the look. And as you watch these trend videos this year, remember, everyone's talking about whether they like the trends, why they don't like the trends. There are so many things that go into them. There's some trends that I will buy into even though I don't like them. There's some trends that I really, really like, but they don't really work for me. And at the end of the day, it's all about what you want on your home. You can follow trends, you cannot. If you have the means to, flip over your house every single year and that's what resonates with you, do it. I'm just here to kind of give my 2 cents and put some thoughts in your head so that you can make a really educated decision on what you do with your home in 2022. So what design trends are you excited about? What design trends are you over? What trends do you not want to see in 2022? I would love to know. If you like today's video, please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and check me out on Instagram. And until next time, have a beautiful day.